Well, Keith, we're back again,
Yes.
and we're talking about sellers' expectations. But just before we went to the break, we're talking about your responsibility as an agent. And I know someone like yourself, and look, we've known each other for a while, you've got a lot of moral responsibilities that you take on, but there are actual legal responsibilities as well, aren't there?
Yeah, and we touched on this before, the code of conduct, especially in Western Australia. We are quite heavily regulated. It's actually a law that you can't operate as a real estate agent unless you are registered.
Yes.
And that means I hold a triennial, so I can actually run a business of real estate.
Okay.
Or you can be a registered sales representative that operates underneath a principal.
So as part of becoming a real estate agent, and you have to know this code of conduct and pass an exam on it?
Yes. To be a sales representative, it's a shorter qualification that you do. To be a triennial holder and a principal of a real estate agency, it's a much longer period of time, and you need a lot of experience behind you as well as the qualifications.
I think I've read somewhere, I could be wrong, but I'll ask you, it's a minimum of 5 years experience in the industry or something like that, isn't it?
It often takes you about that long of time, but you need to have at least 2 years full-time continuous experience.
Right.
Plus there's 2 qualifications that you need to get as well.
Right, okay, because you are dealing with trust monies as well now, aren't you?
Yes.
You start getting yourself tangled in that wonderful world.
Yeah, well, again, the responsibilities there as well.
Yeah.
To run the trust account, and we get audited. The trust account gets audited every year.
Yeah.
As a compulsory thing that we need to do, and then we have compliance audits quite regularly.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your responsibilities, and it is an interesting situation as an agent you find yourself in, because you say, we'll go from the seller's perspective. So I'm a seller, I've engaged you, but then you've got a buyer as well. So you've got moral responsibilities going on both ways. What about legal responsibilities both ways?
We still have a duty of care to both sides of the transaction, but we have a legal requirement to act in the best interest of, in most cases, the seller. And you can't be paid by both sides.
Right.
Okay. So there's strict laws on that. I've had buyers who've offered me a reward if I could get the sale at a certain price. I'm just going, no, put that reward on top of on your offer, and and pay it to the seller, instead of paying it to me. So we definitely
Captain Blackbeard.
Yeah. People will offer you all sorts of things to try and get the deal,
Yeah.
but your obligations and your legal requirement is to act at all times in the best interest of your client, which is the seller in most cases.
Which is the seller.
Yeah.
How do you deliver on such it sounds simplistic when you just say it, but the complexities of when you've got a seller, then you've got a buyer who's going, look, all I've got is this, and we can't quite squeeze to that level, but your job is to, well, hold on, my buyer needs this must start getting a bit of a quandary.
Well, it's your responsibility is to do what is in the best interest of the seller.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that is to get the best price. Now, there will be a certain point at which it's no longer in the best interest for the seller to sell. So if we can't get to that level, and obviously if I do my job and negotiate in the best possible way that I can do it, if we can't get to that level, then we've got to look at alternatives for the seller, and that could be taking it off the market, putting it in as a investment property. So there's different things we can do. But certainly I need to act in their best interest.
I think one area, and we've talked on like the sellers, but one area that it is becoming more involved now, and I suppose because we've got busy lives, people approach you now and say, Keith, I want to buy a property.
Yes.
And all of a sudden now you're engaged from the buyer's perspective.
That's how I started in real estate.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't want to be a selling agent. I used to call it the dark side, So I was a buyer's agent.
Oh, okay.
And so people would pay me to research and buy their properties. Now there's extra due diligence that you need to do as well, because obviously if there's a problem with the property, whether it's disclosed or not by the selling agent, you need to find out and have a reasonable expectation that you would find out anything that's wrong with the property.
Did you like engage tactics then of getting your own independent like building inspector to come in to give you a qualified report?
Yeah. But you do that also, and you know the market. You do some feasibility on it. Often we would be buying investment properties for people,
right?
Or sometimes I remember buying a nice property for a lady. She wanted a house to live in. She just hated buying houses, so she engaged us to buy the property for her, and that was quite fun. We would drive her around and if there was anything that she didn't like that would stop her from buying the property, we would just walk out the door and go to the next one. But when it came to the negotiation stage, then if I'm acting for the buyer, I'm negotiating the price down. So I use my skills to get the lowest price, which is in the best interest of my client as a buyer's agent.
That must be fascinating. I know we see it a lot because we're in Australia, Western Australia, but we see a lot of that in the US, don't we? And I think there's quite a few TV shows where people ring up and they go, look, I need X or Y, Z property, and they'll find a few for them and negotiate. Yeah. Actually, funny, when I got into real estate, that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't even know that job existed. Yeah. And then as I did some research, I found a company that did it. Okay.
And so I rang them up and said, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. And then I went and got qualified and started work with them. Yeah.
What other obligations, legal obligations, are you under from this code of conduct?
Well, obviously we have to act we have to show a certain level of knowledge and skill. Okay?
Right.
And that's about real estate. Okay? And this is why I think it's very good to have an agent that has done their own real estate transactions. There's quite a few real estate agents out there who don't own property or don't own them outside their own residence.
Yes.
So their level of experience isn't quite as much as other agents. Okay. So you'd have to know things about even just the settlement process and what is appropriate and inappropriate to put on a contract, especially if you're adding additional clauses onto a contract. I've seen some really bad ones in the past. Probably one it's funny now looking back, but it wasn't funny, but it was that the buyer requested that the seller paint the living room and 2 bedrooms beige, and that was how it was written on the contract. Okay, so the seller painted the living room and the bedrooms beige, and it was a horrible colour of beige. It wasn't done by a professional. They painted the walls, the door frames, the light switches, everything beige. And when they got to it, they said, well, this is terrible. And they said, well, it actually, in the contract, they've done what you've asked them to do. Okay, so it was a poorly written clause. Okay, so when you're writing extra clauses, it's really important that you know what you're doing and not only in the spirit of the contract, but also in a way that everyone understands what their obligations are.
So I suppose a bit like anything to do with business or any transaction, it's about being very clear, about being very specific. So rather than say beige, you could have picked an actual colour to be done by a licensed professional painter. Yes. Would be another thing you'd want to add. To me, if I was a buyer and I was buying a property, I wouldn't put that clause in there. I would actually make my price with consideration that I would have to paint, and I would take care of the painting myself. Is there the kind of things that, and whether you're talking to buyers or sellers, they're the types of things when they start talking some of these clauses, you're saying, well, hold on, I can understand what you're trying to achieve here, but that is probably better achieved by yourselves and by giving what you call then consideration in the price that you're going to pay because you are going to carry out this work. Yeah,
then you also remove that as a condition of the negotiation, and then you start to dealing back with price.
Yes.
Okay. So it just makes the whole process easier and simpler, and then there can't be any of that confusion. But some people would like to, especially some buyers like to, every little win is a little win, okay? and sometimes it can be to their detriment. Okay.
Certainly can. We'll take a break. We'll come back a bit more because I'm very interested on that point you just said then, and we'll come back with about buyers' expectations and these little things that may not quite work for you at the end of the day, maybe a better way of doing it. So don't go anywhere.